Welcome into our new channel, the Fantasy Football Forecast Best Ball. So, seeing how the draft has started to unfold, right? It's Bijan Gibbs, Chase Puka, and Jonathan Taylor. I think that is pretty much going to be how your early drafts are going. Maybe JSN gets in there, maybe Christian McCaffrey gets in there because we know he's pretty much the best player in fantasy while he's on the field. But he does come with considerable injury risk. But definitely good to see him go right before us there.
And I think for me, the pick here is Amon-Ra. I do have one spot above CD. I've talked about wanting to move Amon-Ra over JSN. I'm not there yet at this point, but we've seen 3 years in a row where Amon-Ra finishes as the wide receiver 3. And, we talk a lot about this, how you're not going to lose your league choosing Amon-Ra.
Yeah, and he comes with considerable upside too because his touchdowns are going to continue to be high. He's in a really high scoring offense. He's the focal point in the passing game, so I can't fault you for going Amon-Ra St. Brown. I personally would go CeeDee Lamb at this point in the offseason. I think if he doesn't get hurt last year, that he could still challenge for the number 1 wide receiver last year. But going into this year, I think there's also still that chance that he can get back to being the top receiver on the board. And so, we're splitting hairs there at that point. I think you can't go wrong with either player.
Yeah, and if you're drafting in February, you're going to spread out your exposure a decent amount. This is obviously Sicko's only territory, but we are 4 picks away. So looking at the board, we've got JJ, Hampton, McBride, Neighbors, London. So I haven't touched Neighbors yet all off season. I just am worried about the injury concerns. I'm worried about them maybe taking a wide receiver at number 5. So until that happens, I think his value is only going to go down unless we get some very positive reports, things like that. But at this point, I'm eyeing either London or McBride. What are your thoughts as we're 2 picks away here?
Yeah, and we see Neighbors go there, and then there goes McBride. So, I think it's pretty safe to go with London. Obviously, the Penix news is going to change him a lot, right, in terms of his value. If Penix isn't ready to go by the beginning of the season, that's going to be a big question mark to open the year for London. And I could see somebody like Hampton or Bowers even getting above him. But overall, I think Drake London is a rock solid pick. And if you start wide receiver in best ball, you got to be feeling pretty good and just try and get that running back value late. And we've seen that work in the past, right? A couple of years ago when you had Rashad White and Devon Achane with Raheem Mostert, right? Those are the teams that end up hitting really hard when you have really good receivers, and then you end up mining the value at running back. It was even like when Kyron burst onto the scene, he was a popular pick in like the round 17, 18 range. So there's usually a lot more running backs that hit in a major way in best ball than wide receivers. So loading up on that position early, I think, is a pretty good strategy.
Yeah, and then going back to Amon-Ra too, one of the reasons I love drafting him is it's so easy to stack with Goff, right? Like every year, people just find a reason to push Goff down the board. And what does he do? He just finishes top 10 and you just get that value. Like all of my best ball teams over the last few years have always been Josh Allen paired with Jared Goff. And that's a lot of the ways that I build my strategy around. And, we might be staring Allen in the face right here, but we don't have a running back yet. So we'll see what happens because, Bucky, Brees, KW, obviously we don't want any part of Rashee Rice at this point. At least I don't. I don't know. A little nervous about it.
You just can't. Not with,
yeah.
Not with the news surrounding him. If you don't know the news, go look it up. But yeah, at this point in the offseason, I wouldn't be interested.
Yeah, it's anyways. So what do you think?
There's a dip coming is the thing, right? You're going to be able to get better exposure to Rashee Rice as we get closer to the season. So at this point, I wouldn't be taking him because you can get your exposure later when he's cheaper. At this point, you know that I'm very partial to Kyron Williams, and I just never understand why he's ranked so low at running back. He always is very good. He has spike weeks because those random weeks where he catches passes and scores touchdowns, he ends up really, really being a difference maker at the position. So, Ken Walker, he displayed in the playoffs that he can do it, but if he stays in Seattle and Charbonnet gets healthy, it just feels like it's another one of those things where you can't necessarily rely on him week over week. But if Charbonnet doesn't end up getting back to full health, or we get reports out of camp that he's not looking himself or he's not fully practicing, I could see Ken Walker end up getting pushed up a little bit there. But again, with best ball, you are looking a little bit towards the end of the year as well. And so I think just as he gets healthier and healthier, it's going to be one of those things where Walker is going to struggle to have those boom weeks because he's not going to be scoring touchdowns.
Yeah, I feel like Kyron is almost similar to Amon-Ra in a way where people are just like, I don't know if they're just bored with him or whatever, but I have him as my RB11. And I think some of the upside for next year with Kyron is like, I mean, we saw in the red zone just Adams get absolutely peppered with targets and touchdowns. And, was that because
8
he was
1-yard touchdowns or something like that?
Yeah, and it's like, was it because he was their best player down there? Like maybe was it because they wanted to get Stafford his MVP via touchdowns? Like maybe that as well. But if that doesn't necessarily stay the course, we could be looking at even a bigger spike from Kyron in the touchdown department. So I do not want JMO. I do not want Loveland.
Loveland being tight end 3 at this point in the offseason is wild to me. I did not expect to see that at all.
We're coming up against the clock here.
Yeah, my pick would be Emeka Egbuka. I think you should go with Emeka.
Yeah.
Oh, you went McLaurin. Okay.
Too late. I went McLaurin. I've taken a ton of Egbuka. Yeah. But I think at this point, with McLaurin, we have the new OC coming in saying he wants to get McLaurin 10 targets a game. And, do I believe that? Maybe. We'll see. Did they bring someone in? Maybe. We'll see. Could that be Brandon Ayuk? Could his value go down? He's another year older. But if that happens, then, he could see a decent amount of value. But I have drafted a ton of Egbuka. I do love Egbuka. And it is funny when you think about Egbuka where it's like, had his season been flipped, right? Like had his performance in the first half happened in the second half, he would be a 1-2 turn pick easily, right?
We'd be having a way different conversation. And I feel like people forget at the beginning of the year, we were starting to see him get pushed up into the top 5, into the top 3 amongst wide receivers. You go look at Keep Trade Cut for dynasty purposes, and his value went through the roof when he was after his like 160 in a score game. So, I still am in on Egbuka, right? The offense kind of sputtered in general, and then having both Evans and Godwin come back, there was obviously going to be a dip there, but I think now is a good time to buy that dip. Another guy I think we could have went with there was Trevion Henderson, and I know we're almost back on the clock, but Henderson I think is a great pick in best ball leagues, just because even though he might still have to contend with Ramondre and might have those busts weeks, we saw what he can do when he gets on the field by himself, and he was just hitting long touchdowns after long touchdowns. So still really like him there as well. So here, I think where I would lean. We got 15 seconds, but I love me some Brian Thomas Jr. Even after the horrible year he had. I still think that there's a lot of boom potential there with him, and I just can't picture another season where he just does nothing all year and they go to Parker Washington. That doesn't make any sense to me. So I definitely think that Brian Thomas Jr. is still somebody that should be drafted pretty aggressively if he's going to stay down at wide receiver 31.
I want to believe as well. He's just too talented. I definitely don't believe that they're going to trade him either. It just doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. And again, with best ball, right? Like there's going to be ebbs and flows in the regular season, but that doesn't matter when, we're putting in our best starting lineup. So I'm going to go ahead and star Jaden Daniels here. I don't think he's going to make it back to us, but I love him as a bounce back this year, and just obviously the stack with McLaurin could pay dividends. Again, I doubt that's going to happen. Otherwise, I would love to get Cortland Sutton. I think he finished as the wide receiver 12
11
last season.
And half
11.
point.
Yeah. So just, I know his second half maybe wasn't quite as good. But again, just touchdowns, decent offense, good player, kind of undervalued. So let's see what happens here. Who are the backups if those two are gone?
His season was kind of interesting too, because he had that 4-game stretch where he got out, or 5-game stretch even, where he got out targeted by Troy Franklin, and everybody's like, oh, maybe this is a thing. And then the end of the year, he finished strong after that. So I think you can still rely on Cortland Sutton. We're 2 picks away and those guys are still there. So we'll just take whichever one in that order is there. There we go. Too easy.
Nice.
Jaden Daniels. Nice.
Okay.
So we get my first and second round pick in rounds 5 and 6 in this draft. So naturally I'm going to like this draft. I still have a lot of faith in both of those guys. I think there's much better days ahead for both of them.
Yeah. And I think this, again, going back to what I said about Amon-Ra, this will set up really well stack him with Goff too, even if we have to reach a little bit. Again, Goff isn't a reach because he's going to finish top 10. And I think importantly with Detroit, it's like, last year everyone was afraid of, Ben Johnson's departure and what was, we were all making excuses to, push Amon-Ra down the board. Well, not you, not us, but the industry. And I think the encouraging thing was Dan Campbell's not afraid to take over play calling duties if things go south. Right. And so we
Yeah,
saw
definitely.
him take the reins. And so my confidence, even with the new OC, again, with the Lions is through the roof. And a Lion that I've been targeting quite a bit because he's pushed down to like tight end 9 is Sam Laporta. Right. We saw what Petzing did with McBride in that system. And I think Laporta is extremely talented. Obviously, the injury, factor at the end of the season kind of left some sour tastes in mouths. But I think he's someone that's primed for a bounce back as well. And, we can look to even triple stacking with him as we go along.
Yeah, and I like the call out for Laporta. I think at tight end 9, that's just much better value for the position, honestly, because you could take Fannin up here, you could take Loveland super early, but I still think that Sam Laporta has as much upside as either of them any given week, especially, and you pair him with somebody late like Brenton Strange, and I feel like you have a pretty good tight end combo there that you can rely on going throughout the year. So we need a running back pretty bad. Maybe we should pull up the running backs and see what that looks like at this point in the draft. So, we could go vanilla with Tony Pollard, and assume he stays with Tennessee. He finished the season really strong, coming off of 4 straight 1,000-yard seasons. So I do think that he's a pretty decent pick at this point. I would not touch Chuba Hubbard at all. I do not think he's going to be the starter, and so seeing him at RB30 is really shocking to me. So do not draft him. Somebody with a new play caller that we could see kind of have a bounce back is David Montgomery too, who's going to get buried. So I don't hate that pick either. But yeah, I think Tony Pollard has the most upside. Tennessee should be better. New system coming in, and Dable has had success with quarterbacks in the past, so hopefully the overall offense, Ward takes a step forward, and I think that can only be beneficial for Tony Pollard.
Yeah, in these like hero RB builds, you need starters, right? Before you kind of take some shots late, and confident Pollard will be on the field. Obviously, Kyron is a stud, but I don't hate that pick necessarily. And we saw Tootin, his ADP is like astronomical at this point. I think the market's just betting on ETN moving on and then Tootin just taking over the reins. So I get that if you're wanting to take a flyer,
Yeah.
but like that's just a little risk for my blood. So
That's
back to the
not
board.
me either. I don't think ETN's just going away. We just saw him in Cohen's offense play really well, so I just think that's going to stick. All right, you got to make the pick. We got 10 seconds here on the clock.
I'm going to go Laporta. I talked about that triple stack earlier, assuming we take Goff. So now we're going to have Goff, St. Brown, and Laporta. We're 14 picks away, but Goff is probably just about that range. So I am confident that we'll be able to get him, fingers crossed. But, Mr. Jacoby Myers, tried and true on this channel. Nothing can ever go wrong when you draft Jacoby. Obviously, the year played out differently than we had expected, but as soon as he got on the field with the Jags, it was just kind of a breath of fresh air for him, and it was good to see him play well. But that is going to be a crowded offense, and the way I've kind of been attacking that, obviously we took BTJ in this draft, but I've been taking Brenton Strange late quite a bit. Was impressed with his game. You don't want to get too carried away with targeting a tight end late, because if it doesn't pan out, like, you can be in trouble. But that's kind of been my strategy with the Jags thus far. And Lawrence to me is just too overpriced. Like, I get it, he finished QB4, but like, how many rushing touchdowns did he have last year? I don't know. It just doesn't feel repeatable. And so Jared Goff is on the board. Took a little bit of a gamble there, but that's what we had discussed. So now we've got the triple stack that I feel good about.
Secured the triple stack. Yep.
Yes,
You're going
sir.
to be very happy about that when in weeks where they boom, and the thing with the triple stack here too, is it's not like you got JMO and Amon-Ra. I feel like there can be at least a little bit of consistency here too with the three that you targeted there with Goff, Amon-Ra, and Laporta. So, I like that strategy quite a bit, actually, betting on a really good offense.
And you had talked about Monty earlier. So, whether or not he's still with Detroit, if he's available, is that still the pick that you would go with here?
Yeah, I mean, I think I
Oh,
still like that quite a bit. We still need, oh, but there he goes. So let's check out the
never
rest of
mind.
the running backs because we do have a lot of receivers in this range. And so, there's some interesting names still here. Woody Marks should still be the starter. I mean, unless they bring in somebody or they draft somebody a lot better. That might be an interesting spot for Jeremiah Love, honestly, in Houston. And Trey Benson, I really thought he was going to take a major step forward, and you see him back to back with Connor there. It just feels like one of those guys is probably going to be really good, especially to start the year. Who it's going to be at the end of the year, I'm not really sure. But I think Trey Benson is honestly a pretty good gamble at this point in the draft.
All right, we'll roll with Benson here. I do wonder if Connor is just going to be a cap casualty at this point where
Yeah, I kind
Arizona's
of think
at,
so too.
and where he's at in his career. And I don't hate Connor necessarily as a pick either, too, because even if he doesn't start the year strong, like we see it with the Chiefs, right, and Kareem Hunt back to back years. These vets join teams and have a ton of value because as much as we want to project that everyone's going to stay healthy on late February, like that's just not going to be the case. So I do think Connor will end up somewhere. And I don't love going way ahead of ADP with Benson there, but we also have to fill out our running back room a little bit here. So I'm confident with the 2 quarterback play. Maybe we grab a third later, but when you've got 2 elite guys, I typically like to just go with 2. Obviously, if Daniels gets hurt, this team can be over, but there are a lot of the other spots that I want to fill out. So looking at the board here, I don't want to trust rookie running backs when we've only got 3 running backs to this point. There's a ton of wide receivers. Godwin's an interesting one. Jaden Reed. I wish Jaden Reed was on the field more, man. Matthew Golden.
Yeah, I know. We got a glimpse of that early in the year and 2 years ago with Jaden Reed, and he was just going off, and it was looking like, oh, wait a second, this is going to be a thing. But it's funny you brought up Golden immediately because that's who I was kind of eyeing at this point. I think there's a chance that he gets significantly more involved than he was as a rookie. They spent a first round pick on him. They have to get him involved. And we even saw it in the playoff game. It was like, oh, you mean you can throw it to Golden? Okay. So let's make that happen this coming year now. Let's make a point to get him the ball. So I do think that he's good. And that guy thought so too, because he just went. So, Godwin and Golden back to back where we're kind of thinking the same thing there. So, maybe we have to pivot to somebody else.
What about Dobbins here? Assuming he's back.
Yeah, I mean, if he's back with Denver, there's a chance, but I don't know that Denver's going to bring him back because I'm the RJ Harvey guy, So
yeah, and I'm the anti RJ Harvey guy. So let's take a bet on Dobbins coming back to Denver. And do we expect him to play a full healthy season? No. Can we use him when he's active? Yeah, absolutely. So good player, still younger maybe than people realize. I think he's only 27, 28, something like that.
Yeah. I was going to guess 26 actually. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, RJ Harvey's the same age, right? Basically.
No, no, he's 24. But I get what you're saying.
I don't know.
Did he just turned 25 now? He's about to play his 25-year-old season. Yeah.
All right, so we've got kind of a string of tight ends here. We don't know where Goddard's going to be. Obviously, a great year, but man, he ran so hot on touchdowns. That was just absurd.
Yeah. Well, it was that one play where they get in by the goal line and they just flip it from the 3-yard line to him, and he runs up the middle like he's a running back. Yeah. It's just that one play got him 7 touchdowns this year.
Anything but make AJ Brown happy, right? All you need to do is give AJ a couple touchdowns. No, we're gonna go reverse to Goddard.
Yeah, no, I mean it's true though. I mean, they would just throw him a fade every once in a while, just see if he can go up and get it. But yeah, all right, we're on the clock, 20 seconds.
So should we go Strange or should we go Connor, Shaheed, Dobbs? We don't know where he's going to be.
I'm good with going Strange here. I actually mentioned him earlier as somebody that you can pair at tight end, where I think he's got quite a bit of upside every once in a while too, because there's a connection with Lawrence there, and he does look for him a lot in certain games, right? And so in best ball, that's the sort of thing you're looking for, where if with the weeks he gets 10 targets, you're going to be using him in best ball. So I like the value there with how much volume he can actually get. You don't have to rely necessarily so much on the touchdowns.
100%. So looking at the board, it's funny. Juwan Johnson, man, he's just the good luck charm of best ball drafts, right? It's just like whatever it is, just draft Juwan Johnson. He's going to get you there week 17. All right, so we definitely need either a running back or a wide receiver. Obviously, we're not drafting Travis Hunter here. Alvin Kamara, I'm just worried that he's going to retire. I don't know if he gets cut, but what do you think? Booty's a great player, downfield shot. Pat Bryant got mixed in a ton there at the end, that playoff game before he got hurt. And then I like McMillan too as a player. I know he's buried on the depth chart, but injuries do happen. Evans might be gone. So pick your poison.
Yeah, make a decision here. We got 4 seconds. Booty, go for it.
Boom. All right. We love Booty.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. I do like, we talked about coming into this video, right? These wide receiver threes on their team that have deep shot potential. And Booty scored a lot of long touchdowns. And Drake May was the best deep ball passer, maybe other than Sam Darnold this past year. So I do think that there's a lot of potential there. As long as they don't go out and sign somebody like Alec Pierce, I think that he can be in really good shape going into this year. And Booty, I feel like everybody just lost track of who he was. LSU player, really good in college. And so even though he didn't necessarily have the draft capital, he is somebody uniquely skilled and able to keep this role, I think, and somebody that the Patriots really like. And so the fact that he has as much boom potential as he does, I think it's worth taking a shot on him in best ball whenever you can get him.
All right, I will tee up the next pick for you. I've got Bryant so far. We're 4 picks away. Anyone on the board that?
Yeah, how do you feel about going buddy strategy in Tennessee's backfield with Tajay Spears? We got Pollard. He's our number 2. If something were to happen to him, Spears is somebody who could go off, right? And I think that's something to be said as you get into the later parts of the draft, is if you can kind of cuff your guys, then that makes a little more sense here than it does necessarily in your redraft leagues when you're trying to hit on players that can be, he went. Okay. Well, I was just going to say that, I don't necessarily always go for it, but in a 0 RB or a hero RB build, and you get down into this part of the draft, I think it can be worth it just to kind of protect your second running back there.
And we saw it 2 years ago where Spears just went off in the playoffs.
Yeah, down the stretch, right? Pollard went off and Spears was just going nuts in the playoffs. So I think we're going to go with Pat Bryant here. I really hope he's going to be the number 2. We got Sean Payton comparing him to Michael Thomas after drafting him last year. And we saw his usage tick up quite a bit. I know he dealt with concussions last year, so that's something that's always a touchy subject that's kind of difficult to deal with. But I do think overall that he can be very productive if he is going to step into the number 2 role for the Broncos.
So we've got 6 picks left. I feel good about our quarterback room, feel good about our tight end room. Could potentially add another tight end, but with 6 picks left, definitely want to make sure we grab 2 to 3 more running backs and then at least 2 more wide receivers, but we'll kind of see what the board gives us. Ridley, meh. Yeah. That was
moving off for Ridley.
Yeah, we liked Ridley last year.
DK's time, Yeah.
Hey, I mean DK's fun. He's explosive. He's a big play guy. I would assume
he already got picked.
Yeah, I was gonna say I assume he's already off the board here. So, what do you think so far? Just looking at what we've got here.
Well, I think at this point in the draft, he's not flashy, but I think we could do worse than Aaron Jones. He's still under contract with the Vikings. So, even if he has to restructure, I think that's somebody that can help stabilize our running back room at this point. It's honestly a little surprising to see him buried this far. I think that's probably just assuming that he's going to be moving on or that they're going to end up cutting him or that he's just getting old at this point. But as long as he's been on the field, he's been pretty productive. So pending injury, I think that he's a pretty good pick down at this spot.
I like that. And finally, the board fell to us the way we wanted. Yeah. So good stuff there. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and look at, oh my God, Isaac Tesla, the quadruple stack. He's going to have 8 catches this year for 4 touchdowns.
Yeah, I think it was actually like 10 for 6. It's just like
That
crazy
was
how many.
who was the guy 2 years ago for was he on the Titans and then he played for the
Nick
Dolphins? Yeah,
Westbrook-Ikine.
Westbrook.
Yeah.
It's just every catch was a
Just
touchdown.
10 touchdowns randomly, yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
No, I think here though, I think the guy that could be as interesting as any is Joe Mixon, because if he's back healthy, that's obviously going to kill Woody Mark's value, but also it probably means they're not going to go in at running back. He dealt with that weird foot injury. I don't know if he ever ended up getting surgery for it or not, but I think that's something that if he comes back healthy, this ADP is going to look ridiculous in September, so definitely interested there. And then, Brian Robinson is in prime position behind McCaffrey, and we've seen him get hurt and the backup be extremely productive. So, if you're looking at running backs this late, that's kind of what you're hoping to hit on
Yeah.
is, somebody that can kind of take over a role. And I think he's got a pretty good chance at that. I'm not a big fan of the quadruple stack, so I'm going to shy away from that. And I'd need to see wide receiver go down a little bit further than Dell and Tesla to have any idea of if we want to go there with this pick. But I think with 2 spots to go, I think we're going to go with one of these running backs.
Okay. Easy enough. Let's see who it ends up being. Yeah, Mixon's my personal opinion is that Houston is going to bring in someone like a Tyler Algier. I think that makes a lot of sense for what Houston's trying to do. Obviously, their defense is just so beyond elite. Algier's someone that's just, he's boring, but he moves the sticks, he scores touchdowns, and then, you can slide Woody Marks into that pass catching role that was kind of his calling card in the first place. But, we're just making predictions at this point. But we'll see what happens. But, obviously, if he is back and healthy, it's pick 185 is laughable, right? He's going to move up to 100, over under 100. Yeah.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah. And that's, the fun part about pre-draft best ball, right? Like some of these ADPs are going to be a joke one way or the other. And that's why you draft a bunch of teams. But getting off my soapbox here, I do think we need to take another look at the wide receiver position. How many picks do we have left? We've got four picks left. So probably 3 more wide receivers and 1 more running back. So Elijah Surratt's probably not going to be available. Keon Coleman. I loved Keon Coleman. Marvin Mims.
He might be okay.
Oh,
the other guy that's on the board here that I liked a lot going into last draft season, but he didn't end up declaring, was Nicholas Singleton, and he's still going up down here. I think there's a chance that he's ends up as the 3rd or 4th running back in this class, and if he does, he's going to jump a lot from 192. I know you said only 1 more running back. That would kind of cap our position here. But I do think taking a shot on at least a couple rookies is probably worth it. And we don't have any rookies yet. So, like you said, Strat is probably going to be gone. But I do think that Singleton is probably going to exceed this draft position, assuming he doesn't end up in a pure backup sort of role. That's obviously the risk with a day 3, end of day 2, day 3 running back.
Yeah, and I think that's important to call out because we're recording this a couple days before the running backs test. So Singleton's going to test through the roof, right? And when those 40 times hit, when his athletic testing hits, he's going to jump up 2 rounds, regardless, obviously still pre-draft, but he's uber talented. Obviously Penn State fell apart. He's someone that I really liked a couple years ago as well. And apparently somebody else really liked him here too. So we got sniped. Oh man. Okay. We got to make a decision fast. Keaton Mitchell's interesting.
What do you think of betting on a Caleb Johnson back by? Oh, 1. Oh no. We're going to auto draft. Okay.
No, we didn't. I got
Keaton Mitchell. That's right.
We didn't get JJ McCarthy.
Anybody but McCarthy. I think with a little bit more time, I would have been able to talk you into Caleb Johnson there. I mean, we did like him a lot, and it was a stacked running back class. We saw a lot of good running backs come out of the class, and he just never really got a shot. It was one of those things where it felt like he just didn't catch up pass protection. Rodgers didn't trust him, and they just buried him. Well, they got a new coaching staff now. He's got another year, and Rodgers is still likely to be there, but I think that there's at least a chance that he's significantly more involved than he was last year. So, are they going to continue to just run it with Warren? I don't know. I would hope that Caleb Johnson would be able to kind of establish himself more as a at least halftime share in that to begin the season in that backfield. So, and if
Yeah.
Gainwell stays, that's going to be tough for both of them because he was just so dominant on passing downs.
Yeah, I think especially if they do move on from Rodgers with the new coaching staff, I think he just, in a lot of ways, got Rodgers and Arthur Smith. That duo was just not kind to rookie running backs, or wide receivers in that matter. And it'll be interesting to see what happens with Ohio State this year with Arthur Smith joining as the OC. I don't think anyone should be too excited about that. But anyways, so we've got 3 picks left. Caleb might still be there.
I mean, we're looking to
Oh,
hammer
we
wide
just,
receivers at
I
this
know,
point,
we
though,
just,
right?
we can't do it. Yeah, we only have
Yeah,
6 wide
no, let's
receivers.
pull up the wide receivers, get the running backs out of there, and
All
let's
right.
get the build that we're looking to get. So, Marvin Mims obviously has a lot of upside, but we kind of took a bet on this team on Pat Bryant, so I would shy away from him a little bit. Your favorite and mine is there, Devon Vele. He should be the number 2 in New Orleans. They gave up their 4th round pick to go and get him in this year's draft, and so it just feels like he's almost a free space at this point in the draft at receiver, because I just have all the confidence in the world that he is going to skyrocket up rankings as soon as they don't sign anybody and their first day of the draft is over and they don't take a receiver. It's going to be like, oh wait, Vele is going to be the number 2. He showed 6.5 targets a game in the 4 starts that he had after the bye last year. I'm sorry. And so I do think that there's a definite upside there with Vele in a way that ADP suggests that there just doesn't exist.
Yeah, I have no issues taking him a couple rounds ahead. And I think single-handedly, I've been driving up his ADP, taking him at the end of every draft I've been doing. But let's just keep hammering him. So looking at this board, Mims will probably be gone. We talked about him. Kyle Williams, we already have Booty, kind of the same topic as already having Bryant with Mims. So, Williams showed flashes, right? But he just wasn't on the field. And I don't, maybe that changes. We'll see what happens with Diggs, but I'm not super keen on taking him here. Malachi Fields is interesting. Let's look at some of the rookies. I do like Jeremy Bernard. I feel like he's just one of those guys that's just quietly very consistent, can be a wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3. Kind of reminds me, not like physical build, but kind of the same way that he was productive at Alabama as oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank on his name. He's now on the Jets.
AD Mitchell?
No. From Bama. Oh my gosh.
Malachi Corley?
No. Oh my gosh, why am I drawing a blank on his name? This is going to drive me crazy.
What position?
Wide receiver. He was with Houston before. He's their wide receiver 3 now. He was traded.
I don't know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
He was with Houston, Christian Kirk?
No.
Our pick is right now.
All right, well, let's focus on this pick. What do you think here? We got deep shot guy with Bateman, Isaiah Bond, deep shot guy, Kupp, Keenan. I don't know.
Yeah, I like Isaiah Bond. I think that he has the best chance to take a second-year leap. Depending on how the wide receiver room shakes out there, because they're all getting buried, right? And so the passing game was really bad last year, and we're not super excited about Pro Bowler quarterback Shedeur Sanders, but I do think that Bond is somebody that has all kinds of talent. And obviously, he got buried in the draft because of off the field related issues, but I think he has as good of a chance as Tillman to kind of take that number 2 spot. And if he does, maybe there is a little bit more upside there, especially if Njoku's gone. So then it's just Fannin at the tight end position. They're going to be looking for a 3rd pass catcher, and I think that it could be him.
All right, last pick. What do you got?
Scroll down. Let's see if we can find a deep sleeper here.
I like
Matt
that.
Collins showed out pretty good, towards the end of the year. I thought that was interesting to see him catching passes in the Super Bowl, albeit in garbage time. Calvin Austin, he can pop off for a long touchdown here and there. Lambert Smith, if Keenan is gone, maybe Lambert Smith ends up on the field a little bit more. Xavier Hutchinson, if anything does happen to Nico Collins, he's always a pretty decent bet to get some work. And Jalen Lane, maybe we go there because we did draft Jaden Daniels. And so if Jalen Lane is able to step up and actually become the player that we both kind of thought he was going to be, then maybe we'll have something there for for that pick. And there's the guy that you were trying to come up with, John Menchie.
There he is. I was just about to say that. I knew he was going to be there somewhere. Yes, Mechie, not in play style, not in body type, but just always a very solid, consistent option for the Crimson Tide. So, all right, let's kind of do a little quick rundown of our team. We've got Daniels and Goff. Love that. Kind of went with a hero RB approach. Kyron, Pollard, Benson, Dobbins, Jones, Mixon, Mitchell. I think with
Those
this
running backs would have been so good 5 years ago too.
I know. Can you believe it? So it's going to be an uphill battle, and we're going to have to kind of sell ourselves on this one a little bit. But there's a path, especially when you kind of take boring bets that the market's a little bit lower on. Wide receiver, we've got some absolute alphas talent-wise with the first 4 picks. Booty's just always kind of underappreciated. Bryant, if he takes another step. Bailey, who we love, Bond and Lane, it's kind of those dart throws. And then at tight end, don't always love only taking 2. Typically we'll take 3, but I think with Laporta and Strange, we can feel pretty decent about that.
Yeah, I agree, especially with Laporta, who we're both pretty confident in for being a back end tight end. And then Strange, he was pretty consistent over the year, but he did deal with injuries quite a bit. So that's the scary part about having a tight end that you feel is maybe a little more injury prone than the rest of the position as your 2. But I do think in terms of performance that we're not necessarily going to need a third tight end like way beneath them. It's going to be more if they can stay on the field. All right. And with that, we wrap our first best ball draft. We'll be coming at you with content for best ball purposes for the rest of the off season. We'll be going over our favorite values at their ADPs, and we'll be definitely continuing to draft more and more teams throughout the off season. We look forward to talking to you guys in the next one.